Hey, Ron.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Did you happen to hear the show yesterday by any chance or no?
I was on the road yesterday, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh man, well you missed out because Chris Cody was just burying you yesterday. Yeah, over something that you did on social media.
This is
wow. What happened? What, Cody? What'd you do, brother?
Well, this is what happened. I'll just tell you.
It's what you did.
Yeah, don't. Exactly. That's exactly right, Ron. It's what you did. Some people, and I won't mention any names.
You already did.
Some people, without mentioning any names, may have said that, apparently over the weekend or last week, you put out a picture, you gave a commencement speech or something at the University of Florida. Congratulations, by the way. What an honor that was to be invited back.
That was quite an honor. It was a very unforgettable weekend for me.
An incredible moment for you, I would say. A lifetime's worth of things to get to that moment, right?
I agree, yes.
Yeah. Well, some people might have said that, you made that moment a bit about yourself when it was really about the graduates, and you took that picture in the O-Dome or wherever it was, and you're smiling on stage with all those grads and their families behind them, and you kind of made it a little bit of
I said all
look
this.
at me, Louie, some people were saying.
You said, look at me, Louie. All I said was, and Billy said, well, look at me, Louie. This was both of us. I'm not saying I didn't make jokes. This was 1,000% Billy and I together, and then now in front of you, he's putting it all on
Not how
me.
I remember.
Now, are we just going to argue the whole time?
Well, you know what, guys? In deference to you, I was kind of pinching myself. So I was kind of taking that picture to kind of prove to myself that was actually happening because I couldn't believe it. I love that university. I would never in my wildest dreams would ever think that they would choose me to be a distinguished alumnus for the university. And so that was a huge weekend for me. Understand, guys, I never got my bachelor's degree.
What?
I left in my senior year.
You're a dropout?
I left in my senior year.
Bad example.
I got an associate's degree from the university, but I left in my senior year because I knew in the profession that I'm in, you need to get your foot in the door. I mean, it's all about getting your foot in the door. And I figured I would go back and finish one day. I never got the opportunity to go back and finish. For that reason, I've always carried a huge chip on my shoulder because I thought I let the university down. The university accepted me. I took a position that someone else could have had. A lot of people want to get into that school and don't. And then I kind of let the university down because I didn't finish my full 4 years. So for the university, when I got the letter from the president that said, listen, you're going to be receiving the Distinguished Alumnus Award, which is a huge award. That's something that has to go through the Florida Senate. I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah,
you're not really alumni.
Okay.
Yeah, you weren't an alumnus.
But the bottom line is, I told the president, I said, Mr. President, I didn't even graduate. I don't have the 4-year degree, and I don't really feel like I'm deserving of this. And he put his hand on my shoulders, and his quote to me was, your career is worth multiple degrees, and that took a huge monkey off my back. So I'm going to say yes. It was a little bit of me telling myself, "Look at me," because I wasn't the failure that I thought I was in respect to the university. So yes, I'm going to agree with you guys. There were things that, and I'm going to post some more stuff just to put it in your face because I'm so damn happy about that whole event. I would never have imagined that, me getting inducted alongside Tim Tebow. He was also inducted as a distinguished.
I mean,
alumnus.
but he graduated for real. Ron, how many classes were you short? Why don't we do like an online thing?
That's what they're telling me.
Yeah, let's do it.
Same thing. Guys,
Come on,
Ron.
Come on, Ron. Jameis Winston did it. You can do it.
If I did it, anyone could do it, Ron.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's get it.
Well,
he was just giving the agree,
doesn't he? I'm going to try to do something because, yes, I mean, I was just really totally blown away by that whole thing. And, a lot of that, again, I feel I still carry a little bit of a chip because I think it's a bit of, today's society, they see you on TV, they hear you on the radio, they hear you on the Dan Le Batard Show, and they think you're more important than you really are.
Speaking of dreams, you mentioned this was a dream of yours. I have a question about animal dreams. So I thought this about my baby, but it also applies to animals. How do animals in the wild who are only exposed to their surroundings, what do they dream about? Because I used to wonder, like, I'd see my baby and like I know the baby's dreaming, but the baby really hasn't been exposed to anything at the time, right? Basically was in the womb, came home, has only seen like a handful of people. So what do animals dream about that don't see anything but their environment?
I'm sure they dream about things in their environment. I think they've shown that babies, even in the womb, dream. So,
but
what are they seeing?
How do they dream if they haven't seen anything?
Well, maybe they are seeing something. I don't know how the brain works. Again, remember, I never even finished my 4-year degree, Billy. I'm not that smart.
Should ask a graduate. I mean,
there you go. Ask a graduate,
or at least somebody who's a little less "look at me, Luis" than our friend Ron Magill. I saw Ron. Some people were tweeting and texting us asking about a gorilla you have that was clearly using some sign language to tell people, "Do not feed me."
Total myth.
Okay.
Total myth. That gorilla is not saying "do not feed me." That gorilla is saying "please feed me." He's doing whatever motion he can to get treats, and that's what he realizes. He realized when he was doing things, people would throw him things. Trust me when I tell you, the gorilla is not saying "don't feed me." It made for a great post. It made for millions of views, but it's all a big lie, like half of the crap that's on the internet.
Can you explain to us, though, what's the most amazing bit of sign language because there are animals, there are gorillas that can learn sign language and have learned sign language. So the most amazing fluency that you have seen a gorilla show in this realm?
Well, of course, it's Coco. Coco, the gorilla from San Francisco, recently passed away a couple of years ago, actually. But that gorilla was known to know at least 300 words in sign language and communicated very clearly. So it does show the level of intelligence that those animals possess.
Ron, there was a study published that said that 21% of reptiles in the world are at risk of being extinct. 58% of them being crocodiles, 50% of them being turtles. What's the cause of that, and how can we prevent that?
Well, reptiles are kind of at the very beginning of being an indicator species. They are reflective of things in the environment way before we are. And what we're seeing is we're just seeing overdevelopment. We're seeing overpollution. We're seeing, environments being removed, wetlands, different types of environments. So these animals, they're indicator species to us. They are our canary in the coal mine. So what we need to understand is that the fact that they're threatened like this, it's not too far down the line that's going to be affecting birds, then mammals, then us, as far as the higher hierarchy mammals go. So we need to look at this as strictly an indicator, a red flag that, listen, this is our future if we don't stop what we're doing now.
What are the practical damages to the ecosystem of the extinction of alligators or crocodiles or turtles?
Well, you're looking at a keystone species. First of all, alligators, people think, well, they're all bad. Alligators are hugely important to the health of so many other animals, for instance, in the Everglades. When the dry season comes, it's the alligators that create these gator holes that provide the water that so many other species depend on to survive. If you don't have the power of that huge animal creating these gator holes where fish and birds can come, then you're going to have these animals start going off too, just like a domino effect, without those gators. And people are, they're also, of course, a keystone predator. So they're managing populations. They're controlling populations, keeping them balanced. So, there's a plethora of things, Dan, that these animals provide. People think automatically, they look at it, it's just a big bad alligator. The last stupid TikTok video of one walking across a golf course. And that's what they look at as the alligator and think, that's what it is. Or somebody's alligator in a garage now because it's breeding season. So these males are looking for females everywhere. They end up in people's garages or people's screen porches looking for females. You got to get off of this stupid sensationalized stuff and understand there's a much greater purpose to these animals. Stuff that you might not know. For instance, these gator holes that create the fish, that feed the birds, that, plant the seeds by flying around. It's a domino effect, man. You got to understand these animals are critical to our own survival. I've said it over and over again. Protect these animals is protecting ourselves.
Juju, what do you have for Ron Magill?
Hello, Dr. Ron. This is Juju here. Do you know what it sounds like when doves cry? And if so, can you demonstrate?
There's the dove called the mourning dove. It's not mourning, M-O-R-N-I-N-G. It's M-O-U-R-N-N-G because it sounds like it's mourning and it sounds like it's crying. And people will hear it now this time of year because it's actually a courtship call and it kind of goes, hoo, 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 hoo. You'll hear that in the morning. Sounds like it's crying. So it sounds like it's crying. It's not really crying. It's actually a mating call. So Mrs. Mourning Dove thinks that sounds kind of sexy, whereas you might think, it sounds like he's crying at a funeral. But that's what the so-called crying of a dove sounds like.
I say this not to mock you, Ron, but because you are very good at connecting children and people to the animal kingdom, at least in part because you're willing to leave yourself vulnerable enough to make some of the sounds that these animals make in the wild that delight you because you're amazed at the language and the song and all of it. So if I were to ask Ron Magill, top 5 favorite animal sounds to make, I want to go with number 5 because we love doing top 5 lists.
This is exciting. I have to write this down.
I will give you some time to think about how to do this. In the interim, we will ask you a question that Stugotz has because he got interested when he heard you talking about the importance of the crocodile to the animal kingdom ecosystem.
Ron, I am wondering, what's the most important animal?
I guess looking from the outside in, the most important animal is us, human beings,
right?
Because we have the ability to control things, to change things. We have the intelligence to understand that what we can do can make a difference. So we are the most important animal.
Second place
after us.
Take
us out of the equation. Yes.
Very myopic answer.
To the ecosystem,
but not surprising based on what he did at the University of Florida.
Yeah, how dare you, Ron? Graduated college.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
This whole thing is me very uncomfortable.
Oh, geez.
Having a go at someone for not finishing college, I don't like people carry that around in their lives. I don't want to pick on that scab.
I carried it around for a long time.
Ron has been emotionally available to us, and all you guys have done is poke fun at what is probably a big scab for him.
I mean, but he's been pretending to be a doctor for years.
Exactly.
Oh my God, you had no right to go there. Okay, you guys had no right to go there with that whole doctor crap.
What do you mean?
And that freaking peer-reviewed garbage of that guy who called in. I'll never forget that bullshit. Anyway,
wow, the guy who's 69 to Mako shark or
stop it, Dan! I can't believe you even put that on the radio. Children listen to this program, for Pete's sake.
Okay,
I get notes from children who are listening to this.
Second most important animal after the narcissistic human.
That's a very hard thing to say. I don't know. I mean, I guess I would go at the very bottom of the food chain. I'd start with ants. There's so many gazillion ants.
We could live without ants.
Yeah. No, we could, but many other animals couldn't. And that in turn causes the chain reaction that would lead to our demise. Okay? That's the bottom line. You guys got to stop looking at what immediately affects you directly and look further down the line. See the forest through the trees, guys.
Says the guy who just said humans are the most important animal.
Exactly.
Well, they are.
Thank you, Dan. We needed some support. I mean,
holy crap. You guys need to hang a punching bag there in the studio with my face on it. That's what you need to do.
I mean, you can see the forest through the trees because we're cutting down the trees as much destruction that humans.
Well said, Roy. Yeah. Well said, Roy.
Yeah,
I feel like Ron needs a punching bag of us more than we need a punching bag of him.
You know why? Because I love you guys. I'm going to try to put myself above that.
He does this show for free. If you wish to contribute to Ron Magill because he comes around here and informs us and illuminates us and tolerates us, the Ron Magill Endowment goes directly to the conservation of animals. He cares about them deeply, and the bureaucracy is out of the way. So check out the Ron Magill Endowment. But let's do this. Top 5 animal sounds that Ron Magill most enjoys making or gets most requested. However you want to make this list when kids ask you to recreate something or adults. Number 5, Ron.
I would go with the mountain lion or the cougar. You ready?
Yes. That's good.
How do you...
Should go to the Panthers game tonight and do that.
Yeah, it's really good.
How do you spell that?
Seems like a sound you hear after Jonathan Huberdeau makes it 2-0 to the Panthers.
You guys are bragging. I've seen the fear on your guys. It's South Florida. It's hockey day in South and night in South Florida, and all of you are afraid that the Panthers are going to let you down.
Nah, man. Panthers in 5, yo.
You say that. I see the fear in this room.
If they go 1-0 down in the first period.
Oh, God.
Heaven help me.
Oh, my God.
Heaven help me.
I got the Panthers sweep. Roy is adorable. He's so excited to cover the game tonight. He has a notepad for 8 o'clock tonight in his pocket of his sweatshirt. It is so cute. Roy, I'm so happy for you.
We're going to get some great tweet updates tonight. Panthers, 4 on the ice. 2-2.
Your mama.
Number, yes. This is the most scintillating account this side of Magic Johnson's.
Hey.
Number 4, Ron Magill.
I'm going to go with the courtship of the bull alligator. Are you ready?
Yes. Great sound. Great sound. Yeah. Love his enthusiasm for the animals. And if this is not a bridge between your kids and loving the animals, I don't know what can be. Number 3.
I'm going to go with the call of the peacock. You ready? Call of the Peacock.
Feels like NBC Universal can use that one. That should be the sound that we hear when I log into Peacock.
That was a lark.
Number 2.
Number 2, the Call of the River Hippo. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
That's a hippo, brother.
Excellent. Just excellent. And the number one favorite sound from Ron McGill.
Because it's the one sound you would never expect from such a massive animal. The rhino distress call. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No.
That's funny.
No.
That's the rhino distress call.
Amazing.
Ron, who hears that? Like other rhinos? How do you save a
Speak
rhino?
up,
Who does
I
that?
mean,
The mother rhino will hear that in a second, brother.
Mm.
And you'll be in trouble.
Chris Cody says that he's got a better number 1 for Ron McGill's list.
I was hoping you just went with humans.
Like sports fans. Let's go. Let's go.
Or how about stabbing a giraffe with a steak knife from the bottom, Chris?
Yeah.
There you go. That's the one. That's the one.
Ron, see you later. Thank you, sir.
Take care, guys.
And we're sorry.
Yeah, I bet you are.
Chris Cody, I wanted to bring you in here because of Magic Johnson and the Magic Johnson tweet from last night, Stugotz, because you would think that this is almost right on the cusp of being something that is spoof, that you can't make this up, that Magic Johnson is going with a satire account that just continually produces the most obvious of points and information. And he writes on Twitter, the 2 big market teams that need to improve are the Lakers and Knicks.
Show me a better tweet he's had.
He's not wrong.
That is the best, because what we're going for when we make fun of Magic Johnson with his tweets, that's it right there. In one tweet, you can't find a better tweet that he's ever had. The most obvious, uninteresting thing you could ever tweet.
I'm not even sure he's right about which teams in each of those cities needs to improve more. I would argue that the Brooklyn Nets need to improve more. And honestly, the Los Angeles Clippers not getting out of the play-in, they have Kawhi Leonard. They could, if he gets back to being fully healthy, if they make a couple of additions.
You're debating the lame tweet of Irvin Magic
I'm
Johnson.
not even sure. I'm not even sure that he picked the right big market cities, Dan.
You're saying people in LA care more about the Clippers than the Lakers?
No, I'm saying that they're big market teams. That was the qualifier, right? Is that they're big market teams. I think the Clippers have a lot of room for improvement, whereas I don't necessarily think the Lakers do.
The important thing here is this is what art does. Art gets people talking, gets them divided, gets them wondering, is this the modern artist of our time, Magic Johnson's obvious tweets that are also wrong? It is wonderful to think of this sentence, the 2 big market teams that need to improve are the Lakers and the Knicks, and think to yourself, that is a 3rd grader with the assignment of using Lakers and Knicks in a sentence while learning how to write and learning things in school. The 2 big market teams that need to improve are the Lakers and the Knicks. Magic Johnson, I've been told, you guys allege that this is not an account that he keeps, that this is somebody doing this for him, which makes me wonder if it's brilliant. Because Magic Johnson right here, the 2 big market teams that need to improve are the Lakers and the Knicks, is being featured on HBO in one kind of film, or one kind of form of entertainment that he objects to, as well as the 90s Lakers, many of them. And on Apple TV, he's got one of these 4-part documentary series, this one made by him, this one endorsed by him, this one saluting an amazing career, Stugotz, and an amazing story.
Yes. One of the great stories we've ever seen in the history of the NBA. It really is. I mean, he transformed the NBA and maybe saved the NBA during the 80s. I cannot imagine that someone is in control of this Twitter account. I think it's magic. I do. I think it's magic being magic, saying the most basic things.
You've heard me say before that instead of having Magic Johnson analyze these games, because it's being done as well as it can be done on TNT. I don't know if you saw Stugotz last night. a video, a gone fishing video of Charles Barkley like rummaging through an igloo, a gone fishing igloo, and then pulling out ping pong paddles from an igloo and saying, after Ernie Johnson baited him, like, what do you mean ping pong paddles? And he's like, ping pong, fool. And as soon as he says that, 1,000 ping pong balls fall from the sky for no discernible reason other than it's great television to drop ping pong balls on Charles Barkley when he's not expecting it.
They have so much fun.
Captain Kangaroo, old school.
And specifically that he was so dismissive about it. Ernie's like, why did you put ping pong paddles here? It's like, ping pong, fool. And then bang, thousands of ping pong balls fall on top of him.
It is so rare for television. Stugotz, I know that people know that that's the standard on studio shows, and I know that there'll never be another Barkley, even as Draymond Green realizes, well, I'll come close. I can be something close in retirement. I don't quite have the sense of humor about myself that Charles does on some of these things, not taking them seriously. But that show, the reason that it's special, and more special than any of your historic chuckle fests all over the NFL, where people have to force laughter, is because after that happened, 30 seconds of friends just laughing at each other, and that never happens on television.
No, but it happens there all the time.
But it just never happens on television, where the wall is knocked down on I know I'm being watched. People losing it laughing on television. It's one of the things, I think it's the only thing I miss about doing television, highly questionable, is that how often that would happen among my friends, where you just giggle, snort, laughing, and lose it for 30 seconds. It was a full 30 seconds of Ernie Johnson enjoying what is great about the clip beyond the obvious, it's just ridiculous television, is Ernie Johnson set crumbs for Charles Barkley to get the ping pong fool spit at him. And because he asked a follow-up, he asked, ping pong? What do you mean ping pong paddles? Ping pong fool. And you see the look on Barkley's face as all of the ping pong balls fall around his face. Oh my God, they got me echoing, saying ping pong fool. And this looks even more ridiculous than I thought it did, because
I'm watching it now and I'm laughing at Shaq, laughing at Charles.
No, but you just never see, on, you guys tell me all the times you've seen people lose it laughing. To me, it's one of the weirdest things about sports entertainment and all of these constructs, Stugotz. How do you do First Take and Undisputed and all of these shows and never have a mistake or a blooper that gets on television that is just you guys losing it laughing like you do with your friends when watching sports? It's weird to me that that's one of the only places that exists, and everyone else is trying to conjure and contrive it.
No, you're right. It's funny because that's how friends watch sports together. The way those guys at TNT do. They don't do it sitting across a desk yelling at each other for 3 hours a day. I mean, they just don't. That's not how people
They are wearing
sports.
out that crew, because those are a lot of playoff games and they are on for a lot of hours of television. That's one of the things that allows them to be so relaxed. It's not just galloping to every next commercial, every 30 seconds. Those halftime shows, Stugotz, they're ridiculous. How little content, how little room there is for anyone to say anything about the game, because they've got to cram all these ads down your face.
But it starts with genuine friendship, right? An accomplishment, like doing that thing together, making that thing big together. It starts with Ernie, Chuck, and Kenny, and there's a real relationship there, real friendship, where that's how they are off the air. They're laughing at each other, and they just carry it on air.
You thought Shaq would be terrible at that, and
I'm not certain he's great at it,
I thought he would be a lot better than he was, but it is the environment that starts with softening Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal does not arrive at that environment and soften it. He bends to its will and is just sort of maximum himself, totally relaxed on television. See, all those people have the confidence of having done something well for a really long time. And that ease, that relaxed ease and confidence, it's not just that they're friends, because Barkley and Shaq legitimately go at it in ways that Shaq's more sensitive than Barkley is. And Barkley dismisses some of Shaq's sensitivities. And that can be awkward for any kind of television relationship. When Bomani got here to do Highly Questionable, he announced, Dan and I will never be friends. It's the nature of television relationships. People elbowing each other out of the way because it's Barkley's show. It's because it's rare for Shaq and Barkley to spend the entire Timberwolves or the entire Net Celtics series arguing about bus driver while saying, hey, Kenny, you're a passenger. Get out of this conversation. You're not needed here. You have no expertise.
And Kenny's not offended. Like
it's really a rare thing to have a traffic cop in Ernie Johnson that all three of them respect so much as a friend that they would do any charitable thing for him that they ask because he's a sweet person and he is there to be of service. He is there. They're not here for me. How do I set up Charles to be most Charles? Man, that's a moving train.
How do I get the best out of these three guys?
Shaq is a mumbler and Shaq is sensitive, but that environment will knock all of that out of you. It feels a bit like the locker room. It's one of the rarest things you'll ever see in sports television, that you feel like you're watching the game with those guys, and then they go in at halftime and Charles says things. Charles is consistently trending at 60 years old. Charles is the first pick in a pickup game in a commercial when he's 60 damn years old, Stugotz. Still getting commercials because for 4 decades, he's been on television. Still hosting Saturday Night Live because the show is Barkley's, but the attitude is Barkley's. And those producers feed it because they know Charles well enough to know that he's a doddering old man who won't notice a giant balloon of ping pong balls over his head when he's out there with Shaq and Ernie setting him up.
I know Charles has talked about retirement and walking away from that show, but man, it seems like he's having so much fun on that show. It will be so difficult for him to walk away from it.
But he's having fun at life.
I know.
Charles Barkley
that's a major part of his life.
No,
Dan.
but you say this. He doesn't like doing the 17-hour days, Stugotz. He doesn't like doing these cram calls for March Madness where they work him like he's retired.
Well, he can pick and choose at this point, can't he?
No, there are production meetings. He can't pick and choose. When March Madness comes,
right?
If he wants to stay on the commercials and wants to stay with where the salary is and wants to stay making the money as the star of that show, he's got to cram course March Madness and have no real information on college basketball. And his job is to just go on television and be Charles Barkley. On behalf of TNT and Charles Barkley and the star of that network, who can roam between all of the worlds, and there is no replacement. Draymond will try, and Draymond will be good because Draymond will say things. But I wonder how much fun Draymond's going to be willing to have with, because that environment absorbed Draymond too. It's Dwayne Wade. It's everybody. They make everyone feel welcome.
But that comes with age, doesn't it? The ability to kind of make fun of yourself and allow others to make fun of you. It comes with age and perspective, does it not?
The television business is filled with all sorts of insecurities from every angle. I've told you before that every athlete who goes up to Bristol, Connecticut, walks into the room and is like, this is not like the locker room at all. This is a vanity and an insecurity I have not seen. People do not speak honestly here. This is the opposite of a locker room.
But in order to make fun of yourself, you have to still walk the tightrope where it's not puncturing your authority. And that's, for example, when the thing you mentioned with Kenny Smith, it's really interesting that Charles Barkley can basically say, sometimes your opinion is not valid. And they remain, because they do that to Charles as well sometimes, where they'll rehash his terrible predictions or, his bad takes on things. I think last night he had like an over on James Harden points, and like they could very easily dig him out for being wrong about that stuff, but he still presents himself with the authority that everything he says is 100% true, even though the whole construct of the show is to make fun of him.
As I mentioned, Stugotz, that Draymond Green has noticed how much money McAfee got. And he's like, wait a minute, a punter? A punter quit his career. And what happened there?
Mm-hmm.
As Draymond Green and all of these people who like to compete for money try to get into this space, I ask you, as everything changes with streaming, how is it possible that show has been the standard for our adult lifetime in sports, and no one has figured out how to do anything that closely resembles, hey, let's just have fun and be relaxed with this. It doesn't have to be sports coats that march up to a point and a line and talk about basketball this way. It could be a Manning cast. Why was the entire structure of the broadcast so resistant to fun that no one can come close to recreating it? Is Charles Barkley that special
I think Ernie's that special, and Charles is that special. I do. I really do. And I think their producer, Tim Kiley, is that special. I think those three people are really special, and I think it's easier said than done. I think what they have is real chemistry, real relationships, real time behind the desk together, real time in front of the camera together. They have a realness that's really hard to find anywhere else in sports. I guess College Game Day would be second place, but it's nothing like the TNT NBA pregame
College Game
show.
Day is more rigid, even with mascot heads and league course.
I agree.
So it feels more like the starch of television.
Yes.
Not just it's to breaks, it's to commercials. It's a very stilted parade toward keeping the broadcast train on the tracks, and that show's not. I just ask you, in a copycat sport where everyone realizes, well, I'll be a first follower if it's to the money. It seems strange to me that they could be so pioneering that they would change the form so much that the form still can't rise to meet them in any way. When that's the standard, that's what you want to be, and no one can come close to doing it, as everyone tries to recreate a version of it, and all of them feel a little extra starched.
Well, it just requires an amount of buy-in that is probably unachievable in most network TV context. There are dozens of people that have to agree that this is the direction that we're going in, and it goes all the way to the top. Because one of the things that I imagine TNT and Turner have to do is massage the NBA and realize that their analysts digging out players, digging out executives, digging out teams is good for you.
Oh, no.
That we're paying you a bunch of money, and that you as a league partner are going to be okay with maybe this not being exactly the product you want it to be.
I would say it is one of Silver's and ESPN's greatest failures. They've wanted a recreation for what that show is the entire time that they've been partners with the NBA. Adam Silver has wanted another show to feel like Inside the NBA. They got the infomercial, and I say this as no affront to the journalists at the company because they were trying to do journalism, but the jump became the infomercial that got negotiated as part of the TV rights deal. You'll have a television show every day, and it will be a place, a gathering place, where our media partner will celebrate our sport by advertising our players. But I'd say if you asked Adam Silver, he would tell you one of his greatest frustrations is that with Stephen A. Smith and Mike Greenberg and Wilbon and a couple of incarnations and Bill Simmons and everything that they have tried to do, Magic Johnson multiple times, that show, no version of that show can exist because between commercials, you can't do that at halftime. You need more time to roam. These people are on the air for many hours every night, and you're tuning in to watch the framing of the broadcast as much as you're watching the broadcast itself. Nobody else has that.
But that's another layer of bureaucracy that is playing defense, right? If your ad sales at ESPN, they probably do get more money out of those commercial breaks than TNT does, because the first segment of the halftime show is like 8 minutes out of a possible 15. NBA halftime is pretty short. And so ESPN would rather get to commercial break quicker so they can get more money for their commercials. Like the number of things, you have producers as well who have spent a lifetime not thinking that there's anything broken about the format, that don't necessarily agree that Inside the NBA is the model to follow. So you have there's tons of layers. You have agents who don't want their talents to go on and get made fun of. You have talents that are not ready to necessarily fully commit to being a media person. They want to, have their hand in business and maybe even get back into being in the game in a coaching or front office capacity. So you're not willing to dig out players and say really critical things, which Charles Barkley does on a regular occasion. Like there's a lot of things that go against it.
Paul Pierce was existing in the system as something that felt like a little dirty on the side of it, and made the show more interesting because he would say things no matter how ridiculous and no matter how you'd argue with them. He wasn't very polished. But what Whittingham is saying there, you realize it makes it impossible if you have that many commercials for anybody to be Barkley, even Barkley. You can't in those windows
spread out.
You can't do anything. Right. There's nothing to be done. It's you talk, give us your keys to the game. Let's get in, get out. We got to get to the next commercial. This all exists for the commercials. Remember, it all exists for the commercials. I don't know what the transaction is on TBS. I just know that who doesn't want 4 hours of I've got to watch live sports as opposed to I can go away at halftime now because my halftime entertainment isn't going to be anything but a break. That doesn't seem to work for anybody. If I'm the sponsor of the commercial, I don't want to exist in a space at halftime where people are walking away because they know nothing interesting can be done here.
It's TNT. It's a fine. $5. I mean, you said TBS.
I mean, aren't they sort of
the superstation?
Aren't they? Okay. Peter, Kafka has arrived, and I think you can all feel it. We were just talking about it. It could not be denied. The sensuality in the room has risen.
Yeah.
He says he is camera ready. He is ready to pulsate with something
Hell yeah.
that is vain and glorious. So thank you for joining us, Peter, because I'm grateful that I was on your podcast. He's the host of Recode Media. It's a weekly podcast dedicated to the future of media and technology.
Little home and home here. I mean,
it is a bit of a home and home. Yes, thank you, Stugotz. And if you want to hear that, because he asked better questions than most, I get into the DraftKings deal. I don't believe a lot of people understand with him in those archives. But Peter joins us now because I don't understand Elon Musk's situation. I don't understand the wealth that has Jeff Bezos, Stugotz. His personal fortune dropped on one day by $20.5 billion in 24 hours. So I don't understand the kind of money that we're talking about here. And I thought perhaps he could help me understand it because he's written about Elon Musk. So you've been questioning Elon Musk for a long time, Stugotz. You think he's a fraud and he's a phony. So Peter, give us some expertise here and thank you for joining us. And sorry for the rambling entry.
No, I'm just enjoying the pulsating. Thanks for having me. What can I try to answer? And by the way, the what's going on with Elon Musk question is one that everyone in the world has. Anyone who tells you with any sort of surety that they know what's happening and they know what he's thinking is almost entirely bullshitting. Can we say bullshitting on
yes.
TV?
Yeah. Okay, but
said it twice.
So the world's wealthiest man, what are his motives? I don't understand what he's doing. I don't understand his wealth really, or how it is that he can be worth so much when his company has never turned a profit. I don't get what he is.
He is wealthy because he has been successful at building companies. You can debate whether the products are great or okay or interesting. He's good at financial engineering. He's amazing at Twitter, which is why he is now the world's wealthiest man, because it's entirely based on the run-up of Tesla stock, which in large cases is apparently moved by his tweets, which is an amazing thing to say in 2022, but it's a real thing. I don't think he expected to be this wealthy. He is an improvisational guy, by all accounts. He doesn't do a lot of thinking ahead. He'll tell you he's thinking about what life will be like on Mars, but in terms of what he's going to do tomorrow, or in this case, how he's going to finance a $44 billion deal for Twitter, I don't think he thinks that stuff through very far ahead, except let's go try it. That's enormously appealing to a lot of people across the political spectrum. So you tie off, and also I think he said on Saturday Night Live, he's got some degree of, he's on the spectrum. I think he understands sort of machinery and numbers better than human beings. And I think that kind of weirdness turns a lot of people off, and a lot of people say, oh no, I recognize some of that in me. I'm awkward around people as well. And I appreciate that Elon is my hero. And by the way, up until very recently, he was by far the most admired person in Silicon Valley. We would put on these high-end conferences with all kinds of moguls would show up and all kinds of wealthy people in the crowd. And they weren't impressed by anyone except for Elon. They saw him sort of as the heir of Steve Jobs, as an iconoclast who was building things the way he wanted to do it. And he wasn't making photo sharing apps or telling you how to throw sheep or poke people on Facebook. He's building spaceships and electric cars and talking about colonizing Mars. And that is a very romantic thing to, I think, a lot of people as well, that ambition. Does that all make sense?
It's a lot of ground to cover, but let's, you said your hero because he can do things successfully and awkwardly. I want to get into what is happening with him in Twitter going forward. But before I do that, help me and the audience understand. You said Tesla's worth that much because he's great at Twitter?
Tesla is worth a lot of money because it has pioneered electric cars, right? For a lot of people, electric cars and Tesla are the same thing. So you get a lot. You build that, you get rewarded. Period. The fact that Tesla is what it is now, and I can't give you the exact market cap, but it's well beyond any kind of rational stock valuation. And you can debate whether it's a little overvalued or a lot overvalued. But there's no rational explanation of why it's worth this much other than Tesla. People like Elon Musk. They like Tesla. When he tweets, it often moves the stock price of the company. So it's kind of disconnected from the underlying valuation of the company without getting into any math. There's Tesla, the company, and there's Tesla, sort of the product and image and brand. And that's the thing that he's really good at moving.
Before Elon bought Twitter, you wrote, Twitter has the same business model, free and supported by advertisers, as Google and Facebook, but it has much, much less reach than those companies, so advertisers aren't going to give it as much support. That's why Google brought in $257 billion last year, and Facebook brought in $117 billion, and Twitter did $5 billion. And it's why Google is worth $1.7 trillion, Facebook $583 billion, and Twitter $36 billion. Why did he overpay for this? Do we have reasonable roots that explain why he would put this much of his fortune into this adventure?
So one important caveat, he hasn't bought it yet. He could still walk away from this whole thing. There's like $1 billion penalty, just a lot of money for you and me. If he decides he doesn't want to buy it, he could afford to walk away from this thing. And there's still Wall Street, by the way, if you look at the stock price, he's offered $54.20 a share. I didn't check this morning, but I think Tesla was trading for less than that, meaning there are people on Wall Street who think that he may not go forward with the deal. But as to why he's doing it, we can take him at his word, or we can see what he said, which is he thinks Twitter is an important platform for democracy in the world, and that there's too much censorship on Twitter, and by this he means conservative voices apparently, and that he wants to fix all that, and that he fundamentally doesn't think that he seems to think that he'll be a better steward of Twitter than the stock market and the board of directors and the existing investors. That he thinks Twitter is so important that he should own it. Which, is there a contradiction there? There absolutely is, but that seems to be what he's thinking. By the way, I think that he's going to reveal a little bit more about his plans for Twitter this week, maybe even tomorrow. So I'm looking for that. So I may have more informed information. But it seems to be something that he's a power Twitter user. He's one of the top 10 Twitter users. He's got 90 million followers. He loves it. He tweets obsessively. He's talked about tweeting on the toilet, like a lot of people who tweet. And I think he's one of the guys, like, I love the product. I love the product so much, I'd like to own the company. I think it may come down to that.
What can he do to make Twitter better?
That is a really good question, because the things he's talking about doing, a lot of people would say will make Twitter worse. He would like less moderation on the site. He thinks you should be able to basically say anything you want on Twitter as long as you're not breaking the law. And there's lots and lots of folks have pointed out that would, if he follows through on that, that's going to allow a lot of toxic crap on Twitter. It's also a kind of naive way of discussing Twitter, because there's different laws in different countries all over the world. You can't just say, this is what we're doing, because even if America says that's okay, someone in England or Germany may have a different view. He's talked about getting rid of bots. He's talked about wanting to make everyone on Twitter have to verify who they are, so you couldn't be an anonymous troll. People would like to get rid of bots. Twitter's been trying to get rid of bots for a long time. Whether or not you can be anonymous on Twitter is up for debate. He's talked about adding an edit button. A lot of this stuff is stuff that if you spend a lot of time tweeting and a lot of time using the service, you may think about. But that's different than running a 30 or 40 or $50 billion company. That's the much more complicated thing. And I don't think he's really thought all that through.
Be careful with what you say about Twitter, Peter. I'm going to buy Peloton. You're never going to be able to ride again. I'm Elon Musk.
They just raised my prices, but I'm gonna pay anyway.
I'll get ready, because I'm going to raise them more. I'm Elon Musk.
I've missed him.
I've missed you so much, Elon Musk. Your limited impersonation. There was a pre-pandemic experience with life that I had this Elon Musk in it, and he's been gone the entire pandemic. Thank you for dusting off that mask and resurrecting.
I don't worry about losing $1 billion, Peter. I'll sell 2 Tesla SUVs and make it back. I'm Elon Musk.
That's genius. You guys are very impressive.
Thank you.
I asked Billy, have you seen Elon Musk? Has he been hiding anywhere? And there was about a 15-minute search through the various crevices of our studio to find Elon Musk.
Peter, hold on a second. Billy, what other things did you find? Once it is we asked you to look for the masks. Now you got 2 masks. What other things did you find? You got 3 masks. 3 Elon Musks are here. All right, feel free to argue with Peter whenever it is that you want. Oh my God, you've got so many masks. All
One
right.
for every occasion.
All right. What else did you find under your desk that you did not know was there before?
Oh, wow. That is jarring.
That is a Stugotz.
Build the tunnel already, buddy.
Peter, I'd like some more information. What are the most credible sources on Elon Musk's intent, on how nefarious his means, on if he's being flippant because he likes to be the guy tweeting on the toilet and just is being a free speech absolutist, but doesn't realize what it is that he's welcoming into a place that's already very toxic?
I think this is one of those cases where you look at what the guy says, and in this case, what he tweets, and you can debate, do we take him at 100% face value? Does he take himself at 100% face value? He has a very limited circle of people that he relies on. He mostly relies on himself and his gut. He is not like your standard gazillionaire or CEO of a giant tech company where he's got a whole board of advisors and a lot of corporate machinery working with him. He's a guy who flies his own planes, and I think this is him flying his own plane.
Peter, Dan mentioned the numbers on the revenue that bigger tech companies bring in, like Facebook and Google. Why is Twitter so small by comparison? Because we discussed when he initially bought Twitter how it kind of has an outsized importance on our view as journalists, as people who work in the media. Everyone who's in the media is on Twitter, but it doesn't seem to have a bigger reach. Why is that?
Well, that's one of the... You've summed up a big Twitter. You've summed up Twitter very well there, which is everyone who's on Twitter thinks it's incredibly important, and media people love it. Media people love to hear themselves talk, and they like to debate people, and they think that's incredibly important, and they think that anything that has them on it must be incredibly valuable. The rest of the world, they're fine without it. By some metrics, Twitter is maybe the 16th or 17th biggest social network, if you're including things like YouTube and TikTok. It is as important it is to people like me. For a regular person, it's not something they spend a lot of time thinking about. In fact, and if Donald Trump hadn't used it as one of his main platforms, I think it'd be even less important to the world. It's a classic. It's a conundrum of Twitter that it sucks up a ton of attention, especially from media people and other people who like to engage with them. And for lots of normal people, it's just something they can live without.
Can you give me, as somebody who has covered the tech industry since 1997, how ridiculous or absurd or unprecedented or dumb or reckless it is for someone to take this kind of wealth and overspend on a toy like this? Take this percentage of wealth and spend it this way. We have a lot of precedent here.
Never seen anything like this. The rich men buying stuff they like, either because there's a limited amount of them and they think it'll go up in value, or because they think it's a cool thing to own, or because they think it's an important thing to own. Obviously, in the sports world, you guys see lots of examples of that, but no one paying so much more than what the market thinks is worth. And no one's spending so much of their net worth on this. And also, again, it's the world's richest man doing this. And it's not like Jeff Bezos buying the Washington Post, because Jeff Bezos bought that thing for $250 million. This is $44 billion. And he says this is not, the economics aren't important to him. But again, he will have to run this thing as a business. He doesn't have the option of saying, I don't really care what happens to this one way or the other. It's a plaything. I have not seen any parallel to this.
What do you imagine Bezos thinks of it, or other wealthy people? Because you're making it sound as if Elon Musk, whose companies have never made a profit but is so valuable, at least in part because of the Twitter brand he built, that Elon Musk has purchased as a toy, overspent on something by billions and billions of dollars because he's addicted to doing something on the toilet.
I do wonder if they think, maybe I'm not thinking big enough. Maybe I shouldn't have bought the Washington Post. Maybe I should have bought everything. But most of them have some sort of regulator on them, right? Whether it's actual regulation and laws, or someone saying, hey, that's not a good idea, or they're beholden to the stock market in some way. Elon Musk seems pretty unbound by most conventional checks and balances, which again, why he's a fascinating character to talk about, and why he's different than your run-of-the-mill billionaire, and why only people like Jeff Bezos, who's second or third richest person in the world, are even sort of in the category of they're even in the discussion with him in terms of, could someone else do something like this? There's a very limited number of people who could do it. It's 2 or 3.
Doing a South Beach session this week with David Simon, who created The Wire, Stugotz, and he has said that he has long since grown tired of expecting billionaires to ever do the right thing. But Elon Musk has a power here with this toy to do something that would influence many, and the choice he's making is to make it even freer than it's ever been, which means a more toxic place than it's ever been, with more division than it's ever had. And does he think in any terms, as someone who comes from apartheid in South Africa and whose history suggests that he's the height of privilege and might benefit from keeping others? Is there anything to indicate that Elon Musk has nefarious means or good means, or is just being flippant because he wants to own a toy that he's addicted to?
That was a Stugotz question, right? Not for me?
No, it was for you.
It was for me. Okay. Yeah. I think that he thinks he is already doing good for the world. That electric cars are good for the world, that solar power is good for the world, that building spaceships that go up into space and that come and land down on the way they launched, so you can reuse them, is good for the world. And then eventually he's going to take the world to Mars and he's going to save humanity. I think he thinks he is genuinely doing good for the world. I think he thinks, among other things, him running Twitter is better than other people running Twitter, and that will be good for the world as well. I think he believes that in his heart of hearts.
Peter, how often do you tweet from the toilet?
I'm not saying it happened this morning, but it might have.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow. You really cornered him on that one, Whittingham. Yeah. You boxed him in there, and that sounded like an admission to me. Even from a savvy interviewer, he was not expecting that. You really caught him off guard.
Confirm or deny. I don't respond to speculation and rumor.
I would hasten to guess that maybe every single person in this room has tweeted from the toilet.
Put it on the poll at LeBatard Show. Has every single person in that room you're in right now tweeted from the toilet? Wherever it is you are
Not
in the
our
world.
room, your room.
Yes, wherever your rooms are, we are saying there is none among you. Even as Peter tells you, hey, most people listening to this don't care about Twitter at all. Like the grand majority of people. This is not Facebook.
Elon and Skip Bayless.
I don't know. I don't know what he thinks he is purchasing. I don't know why he's valuing it so many more billions of dollars more that Twitter can no longer poison pill his advances. They had to. He's paying so much, Peter.
They have to take the deal.
I mean, they don't even have a choice.
And also, to get a little wonky, he can't buy Facebook. He can't buy Google. Even if he had the money to it, those companies have structured themselves in such a way that Larry Page or Mark Zuckerberg can actually say, no, we don't want to sell the company. It doesn't matter that it's public. I essentially control this thing. Twitter never structured itself that way. So he showed up with a pile of money. Twitter's board looked for someone else with a bigger pile of money, or at least equivalent pile of money, couldn't find anyone, which should be a warning for you, and said, all right, you win. You bought this thing, theoretically.
That's amazing. Twitter couldn't find anyone else who was interested. I mean
not at this price. How much did he by even the
but Peter's saying that should tell him something, Elon.
By even the wildest of measurements, he overspent and overbid by how many billions of dollars?
I'm just looking at Twitter's market cap right now. The market still doesn't believe he's going to buy it. You can buy Twitter right now. You can buy a share of Twitter for $49, even though Elon Musk says, I'm going to pay $54 for this. So that's an easy $5 you can make if you think he's going to buy it.
If you trust him.
Not everyone is convinced.
Right.
Yep.
He bleeps with people on Twitter, man. That's what he does. I mean, I know you're saying he's great at it. I know because he could drive a stock price up, he could drive it down, but he bleeps with a lot of investors on Twitter, does he not?
Yeah, and the libs and all. He's going after Warren Buffett. He goes after writers. He will tell you that he's a centrist. But a lot of the folks he's hanging out with online and apparently in real life are tilting to the right these days. That may mean something. It may mean nothing. But no, he's a shit poster. And he's very Trumpian in that way, which is the thing to do is to get a reaction. A thing that I said today may not be what I believe or say tomorrow. I kind of believe it. Let's throw it out there and see what happens. What's worst for him is to get no reaction. So he's getting the best way to get the biggest reaction is to buy the whole thing and freak everyone out.
If he doesn't buy it, Peter, how will that affect the stock? Like, how much will it drop?
Oh, it'll crater. Because if he doesn't buy it, not only, first of all, then the only person who wanted to buy Twitter is now off the table.
Right.
But he already owns about 10% of the stock. Presumably he would sell that. Then the whole thing gets really cheap. And then maybe you do find another buyer saying, all right, well, now that Elon's knocked the stock in half or whatever the number is, maybe I could make a deal here. Again, the logical buyers for this company are a Google or a Facebook or an Amazon or an Apple, a big tech company that could use this in some way. But politically, for antitrust reasons, none of them can touch this thing. So there really aren't a lot of obvious buyers who want this. There's not a lot of financial engineering you can do to make this thing more valuable. So that's why you're not going to see a private equity company come in and buy this thing. No one really wants it except for Elon Musk.
So he could buy the whole thing for like $46 billion, or he could cripple the value for $1 billion.
Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good talking to you, Peter. It's
amazing.
why we wanted to have you on. He's the host of Recode Media.
I'm going to buy it.
It is a weekly podcast dedicated to the future of media and technology. Thank you, Peter. We enjoyed we enjoyed the information. Greg Cody has left sick. I should have told you that before now. For those of you who have missed Greg Cody, we will be back to close out the show after this. We tried something different today, Stugotz, that we might insert more of. I'm eager to listen to it. I have not heard it yet, but both Chris's were unleashed upon the Heat playoff game last night, and I'm hoping made fools of themselves and did some guerrilla journalism. And I saw Dave Hyde interviewed about whether he would attend my funeral. And I was delighted by some of the content that was being produced. And today's post-game show, okay, it released. We're going to have to come up with a more efficient name for it, okay, because it was the post-game show on the Heat playoff victory in Game 1. But it was delivered at 5 o'clock this morning to you, so it was our pregame show before anything else, but it was called the postgame. So it's a postgame, pregame, postgame, and I hope there are more of them because you guys enjoyed yourselves at the Heat game yesterday.
I did. I learned a lot. You know, being a member of the media is different. You can't cheer as much. You got to be a little bit more subdued. I learned a lot of lessons, though. I learned if you want to get the ice cream sandwich, you got to go at halftime because after the game, the ice cream sandwiches are gone.
Right.
I learned that the chips are always there. If you want the salt and vinegar or the classic chips, those will be there the whole time. And I learned that the food, other than that, is, you know.
But the rare post game that comes first before anything. I mean, I love that.
It's a pre-post game, for sure.
It's
amazing.
The post game on
You're
the game,
something.
if not the post game on the show. Now, actually, Chris and I, we recorded this after the game, and we posted it pretty well straight away. So if you're craving some Heat Sixers content late last night, we were there for you.
Can you guys try to break down the game before they play the game?
I was thinking that too. You take the pregame, postgame to the next level, and you do the postgame show for the next game before the next game starts.
Just to see how close you came to getting stuff right.
Exactly.
You know? Or if you get it wrong, it's funny. I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
Right.
We did that with the NFL draft where we recorded a mystery crate before the NFL draft, and we started doing the thing of like, hey, because it was released on Friday.
What the hell was I doing?
The draft was Thursday night, so we started saying, hey, how about that 18th pick? And it turns out the 18th pick was actually traded
for A.J. Brown.
So like
we were like, wow, what a wacky trade at 18.
We were doing the thing of like, wasn't that draft great? Oh, remember that 18th pick? Like we nailed it. So exactly what you're asking for, did it last week with the draft.
Well, do it again.
How did
the playoffs?
Your dad left, but how did your dad do on predicting the draft? Like, how many Zagackto, Perfectos, whatever it's called, did he have?
He said he was better than Kuiper. I don't know if you want to call him as he drives home to find out. He said he had 6 Zagacktos.
Wow.
Which are
very impressive.
Stugotz only had 3 Zagacktos.
Yeah.
So I think we should define what a Zagackto is. Because
they get it.
He got 4 picks correct to the team that was drafting there in the slot in which they were drafting. He then got 2 further Zagacktos in terms of the position that they were drafted. However,
wait, I did that too, Billy. I got 4.
No,
however, the team that picked the player was not who he predicted because it was a trade. So he got the draft slot correct, meaning the number of pick, but not the team. Is that a Zagackto? I'll leave that for you to decide.
No, they can't both be Zagacktos.
Wait, but Billy, I had a guy going 21, but there was a trade. He went 21 to a different team.
Stugotz had 3 that went exactly right. He had one. Well, no, Stugotz had 2 that went right. He had 1 that went to the Eagles, but the Eagles traded up to make that pick, so he had it in the wrong number. And then he had 1 at 21 that went at 21, but to a different team because there was a trade.
Zagacki.
How many did you have, Dan?
I have to stop because Whittingham throwing his hands in the air and saying, "Is that a Zagackto?"
I'll leave it to you guys to decide.
I'll let you decide.
Never has a lamer topic been thrown in our laps.
Just that sentence alone, okay? If it were the tombstone on our show, I'd be fine with it.
I mean, we haven't established a clear rubric for what a Zagackto is. We have to establish the rubric.
I'm about to, okay? I'm about to explain all of this to the audience in a second in a way that's going to be a little bit constipated.
I feel like Whittingham is the stickler for these kind of things, and maybe you should decide. But Let's listen to what Dan has to say.
No, but this is you will befoul anything. So not surprisingly, as a Zagackto argument breaks out, you try and lie and cheat your way into having more Zagacktos. Because this mock draft isn't the dumbest thing in the world, but you guys fighting about whether you knew more or Cody knew more or Kuiper knew more about this draft pick to this team is absurd. But is that a Zagackto? I'll let you decide.
We have the inventor of the Zagacktos, Greg Cody, available on the line to us. Greg, now we're debating the merits of the Zagackto and what exactly is a Zagackto, whether you have to have the team correct or not, because you'd have 6 if it was just which player goes in which slot, but 2 teams were off. So I was saying that might not be a full Zagackto.
Whittingham, please. Greg, just hold on for a second, okay? And I hope you're feeling better. But just explain to somebody who's listening to the show for the very first time the phrase Zagackto. Like explain it to a fourth grader, okay? Explain to a fourth grader who wouldn't understand an alien. Zagackto. What is a Zagackto? What does that word mean?
So an alien in 4th grade.
What does this word mean? Explain it to somebody who has very remedial skills like a crocodile or a Stugotz.
Explain it to me.
Okay. It's a play on the word exacto. Okay, everybody knows what an exacto is. It's like a bullseye. You've got an exact, correct thing going. And Zagackto is just, I say Zagacki, and it's a play on. It's like Zagacki married the exacto and became Zagackto. Okay, that's about the best I can explain.
Well, who is Zagacki?
In layman's terms.
Who is Zagacki?
I got it.
Well, that's Joe Zagacki, a locally famous broadcaster known for football broadcasts. And so in homage to him, I say Zagacki instead of exactly, which is another, exactly and an exacto are like the same thing. I hope I'm not confusing people.
No, it is never clearer than it is right now. I regret calling you, of course, but
he's had a rough day, man.
Yes, he has had a rough day. Now, what is a Zagackto in the draft? How many did you have, and did you have more than Kuiper?
A Zagackto, and this sounds simple, but it isn't. A Zagackto is, in the first round, you had the right player going to the right team. That's a Zagackto. And Kuiper and I both tied with 6 Zagacktos. Now, the tiebreaker is the super Zagackto.
The super Zagackto.
Wait a minute.
This is
Holy
exciting.
Shit. Are you kidding me? There's something better than the Zagackto.
The super.
The super What?
Wow.
What do you mean? There's
Super Zagackto.
Shh, I need to hear more.
How is the tiebreaker the super Zagackto?
Well, because that's rare. That's more rare to get. And the super Zagackto is you not only have the right player to the right team, but in the exact draft order. Okay, and I won the super Zagackto tiebreaker over Kuiper 6-5.
Wow.
So I'm claiming victory.
I have a question for you, Greg. What happens if you get the right player at the right pick, but there was a trade, so they're going to a different team?
Mm-hmm.
I have never confronted that.
Wow.
That's a good question.
There were 2 of them in your most recent mock draft.
Yeah.
Where you had it in the right draft position. It was like 21st, and you had him going to the, I don't remember, where it was the Packers, but then it said they went to the Chiefs.
Right. What is that, Greg?
Can please, Greg, just so people understand who tied Mel Kuiper for Zagacktos, because you're not out there, talking to scouts and covering the Senior Bowl. So can you just explain to me your information? Where does it come from?
My information is pretty simple. I look at every team's draft needs, and I speculate where a player who fits that position might be expected to go.
Greg, do you steal from other mock drafts?
No.
Never.
No, I do read other mock drafts that I respect. Of course I do. That's part of my research. is glomming off other people's research. Because, like you say, I'm not studying film. Film study to me is watching The Wizard of Oz. But I will say this.
Jesus, what a bad joke.
Even better than the Zagacktos. Are you ready for this?
Something better.
I don't know whether this is fully appreciated. Okay. I predicted the Dolphins' first draft pick at 102nd overall late in the third round. Wow. I nailed that. And the odds of that are astronomical.
When did you make that prediction? Before draft, like round one?
It was in my mock draft.
Wow.
The Dolphins didn't have a first-round pick, so at the end of my mock draft, I had the Dolphins at 102 selecting Shannon.
That has
what
to
do
be,
you call
that's
that?
better than a super
What is that?
Super duper Zagackto.
Super
That is
duper,
better
yes.
than amazing. Way to go, Greg Cody. Ladies and gentlemen, the Greg Cody Show featuring Greg Cody. He is one of the lead analysts when it comes to draft analysis and
Amazing.
borrowing the other mock drafts of others. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you.
Stugotz, I'm not joking when I say to you that as people all over the mainstream media get ball-sacked by satire accounts, there are two stories from yesterday, Stugotz, that I have looked up and I have re-looked up, and I still don't know whether the two stories I'm about to read to you are real stories or fake stories, but I want them to be real stories. I'm wishing to believe these stories.
Real or fake? New segments.
No, it is very confusing because now there's a butt crack sports wandering around there trying to get people, and ball sack is going to have all sorts of derivatives that are fooling media people into getting Stephen A. Smith to go on First Take and say something that was reported about James Harden beef with the Nets that he's just taking from a fake report.
There's really a butt crack sports?
There's been an an outbreak.
I'm upset I didn't think of it.
Yes, and these two stories, you guys tell me, true or not true? Fake or not fake?
Okay. What a game.
There's a movie coming out starring Ray Liotta called Cocaine Bear.
True.
That can't be real.
It has to be real.
Cocaine Bear?
Why would that surprise you?
How do those things go together at all?
Ray Liotta.
It's a fine answer.
Ray Liotta and O'Shea Jackson Jr. star in Cocaine Bear. What's that about?
A genuine question.
No, I think I know what it's about. It's a bear on cocaine that goes on a rampage. I believe that it's based on true story.
That can't be.
Fictionalized account.
Yeah, 1985.
Really?
Tell us the story here, Billy.
Well, I wasn't there, but it's inspired by a true story of an American black bear that ingested a duffel bag of cocaine in 1985.
Starring Ray Liotta and O'Shea Jackson Jr.
Kerry Russell.
A star-studded affair. So it's a real story. How about this? Is this a real story? JaVale McGee is quoted as saying, well, they were the best team in the finals, the Suns were, and they were the best team last year and lost in the finals. They just needed one piece, and I'm that piece.
True.
True.
That can't be true.
Why are you saying that?
That can't be true.
He thinks he's the missing piece.
Which part of this are you not understanding? That can't be a real story. That JaVale McGee believes that the difference between him and the Warriors and the Heat and the Celtics and a Suns team that was great in all the other games they played that weren't the 17 that JaVale was in this season.
He's a 3-time NBA champion. I mean, where JaVale goes, rings follow.
How about this, Dan? On NBA.com/news/Suns-view-JaVale-McGee-as-missing. You don't need the whole thing, but the headline of the story is Suns view JaVale McGee as missing piece to championship puzzle. NBA.com had it.
I mean, this is a guy who wanted to fight Shaquille O'Neal because he was on Shaqtin' the Fool way too much. That's how seriously he takes himself.
3-time champion. JaVale McGee. 1-1 in the bubble.
1-2 out of the bubble, Dan.
1-1 on the Kevin Durant team. That 1-2 on the Kevin Durant team that was totally unfair. To be fair to JaVale McGee, when I have seen him play, at the start of this revolution, I was like, how does anyone guard anything he's doing? The athleticism on someone that size was absurd to me. And then they all went out to the 3-point line.
Right. They left JaVale behind.
It's like I was already looking at JaVale and I'm like, good God, how does he just not swoop down from the sky and dunk everything? Unimpeded. How does that? And then it was just alley-oops and falling out of bounds and throwing the ball at the shot clock. Everyone made him a fool, and I lived long enough to be 3-time champion JaVale McGee thinks he's the missing piece in Phoenix.